Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and today we're going to be continuing our character profiles on the Limbus Company Identities and E.G.Os, specifically focusing on Meursault. This is going to include the new Meursault unit that did just recently come out, so let's go ahead and dig in. As usual, we are going to start out with Meursault's E.G.Os, and we are going to start with his primary E.G.O. Now, I actually used to think that this E.G.O. was okay, and I've actually used this E.G.O. before. Requires 1 Sloth, 1 Gloom, 2 Envy. Definitely not going to be a good use of your Envy if you do have it. It is a blunt attack. It does come in at 19 skill power with +3, but the growth is 0.57, which is really bad. And what's even worse is it gives you attack power down as you are doing it, and it also gives you bind. So using this E.G.O. is just going to give bind yourself, and it's going to weaken yourself. If you're not killing the opponent, you are going to give them attack power down and bind down, but it just doesn't seem incredible. You are going to gain 2 protection. The passive at the start of the combat phase, self-apply 3 protection if the unit is targeted by 3 or more skills. So this E.G.O. is only going to be really useful later on into the fight, unless you are doing like a 1v4. Not my favorite E.G.O., but you could potentially find some use if you're trying to maybe delay a 1v1 or something of that nature. Pursuance is only gotten from the Gotcha. It does require 20 sanity, 4 sloth, 1 gloom, 2 pride. It is blunt. 0.63 growth is better. Skill power 26 and coin power 8 is okay. What's nice about this is after the attack, heal 2 other allies with the lowest HP for 30% of max HP. Give them 2 protection next turn. This is a very good support E.G.O., very similar to Sinclair's. On hit, it's also going to burst Tremor, so you're going to have access, even if you're not using a primary Tremor form of Meursault, is in order to burst Tremor. Now, the passive, after winning a clash with the leftmost skill in the dashboard, apply 1 attack power up or defense power up to a random ally next turn. So very easy to activate and use. I would say this E.G.O. is very powerful and very good. What's interesting though, compared to the final E.G.O., which you do get in the battle pass for free, is that out of all of them, I feel like they're all okay, except the healing and the support of the previous one is great, but the other 2 E.G.Os are just kind of okay. And this E.G.O. in particular, you want to get beat or hurt, is going to be an Envy E.G.O. So you have to ask yourself, first of all, do you want to use your Envy on this? Is this the E.G.O. you want to use Envy on? It is a blunt attack, requires 2 Envy, 1 pride, 2 sloth, and 20 sanity. Has a growth of 0.82 and a skill power 23, which is pretty powerful. Coin power +4. You gain 3 protection, you gain 1 surgery. On a heads hit, you're also going to inflict 3 paralysis. This is pretty powerful in terms of attacking a single enemy. Surgery, I'm not sure how relevant that's going to be, or protection either in this case. If the E.G.O. skill is used at less than 25% HP, self-apply 3 attack up, defense power up, and haste every turn, but die in 3 turns. I don't find this passive useful, and I think most times if you're below 25% HP, you're going to be dying anyway. So when I look at this and I'm like, yeah, this is an okay E.G.O., right? Has good power, good growth, gives you protection and surgery and inflicts paralysis, which is okay. But you're also wasting all of your E.G.O. resources in order to pull this off. I'm not sure this is going to be the best use of your E.G.O. resources. I would rather give the party-wide self-heal with your E.G.O. resources, or potentially use an E.G.O. from another character. Interestingly enough as well, that this E.G.O. doesn't inflict burn, because you see a lot of the free battle pass E.G.Os inflicting burn on opponents, and he doesn't have an E.G.O. that actually does that. So I'll be curious to see in the future if we do get an E.G.O. from him that does do that, especially considering his 2-star form is like the burn god of characters that can inflict burn on opponents. He does have 4 identities because we did get a brand new version of him that just came out recently. So let's go ahead and talk about them. His primary form, probably one of the worst units I would say in the game. I'm not a fan. 0.52 growth. His abilities literally skill power 254, with potentially, 4 coins with +1 coin power, 1 coin with +8, and 2 coins with +4. With low offense level, inflicts tremor, burst tremor, gains protection, gives defense up. I mean, it's just all around like, yes, tremor exists. It's just not great. Almost any other version of him is going to be better, even though he is using blunt abilities here. Just all around, not good. Less than 50% HP in 1 protection. I mean, okay, it's an okay passive. 1 ally with the highest max HP, minus 10% damage for attack skills. Again, not great. His speed is terrible, 2 to 3. And he has moderate HP and defense. Now, section 6 Meursault is going to be probably, I would say, my second favorite version of him, and I think he will become more relevant as the game does progress. He's not rated very high on the tier list right now, but from what I've kind of seen as I've done these character profile reviews, is that it seems like as we progress more, as we get further in the battle pass, we're going to be getting a lot more E.G.Os with access to burn. We're going to be getting potentially another character with burn. I think burn may become a little bit more relevant, at least in PvE content, and I think he will have a time to shine. His attacks are all blunt here. His primary ability does have low skill power, but 2 coins at coin power +4, growth 0.7 all across the board is going to be great. And he's going to inflict burn. So 2 burn, potentially 2 burn. And what's great about his second and his third ability is that if the target has 6+ burn, inflict 2 burn to 2 random enemies. And each of these abilities has that. So that's a very powerful, almost like propagation in terms of being able to spread that power. Also a good point out here, 2 coins, 2 coins, 3 coins, if that's something you are always paying attention to. When attacked, inflict 1 burn on the attacker, activates a certain amount of times per turn depending on your lust resistance. 1 ally with the lowest speed inflicts +1 burn. Again, lust times 2, lust times 3, really easy to pull off the support and passive. While it may not be like game changing, it could be really powerful, particularly if you are going into, say, something like chapter 3, where you are going to have really longer turns. You're going to be dealing a lot of damage, this type of thing. He also has reasonable speed. 2 to 5 is pretty good for what would be considered a more defensive-ish character, and like not fully offensive. I mean, he is offensive, but he's a 2-star. It's good. It's good compared to, a lot of characters out there. It's a good combination here. So I would say his 2-star form, I think it's actually rated a little bit low on the tier list. I would actually put it in A tier if I were doing this. And again, the tier list is always changing. So 3-star W Corp cleanup agent Meursault. Now, I actually am very disappointed with this. Now, there is a case to be made because he does have an envy ability, right? But it just seems like his kit doesn't work. And while I personally don't use him because I don't have him, I just don't see it being good. I see this, like, I could see him being good if you're having to individually manage the character. So because you're going to be focusing on charge count so much, because his final ability is very heavily dependent on charge count, you may want to like actually focus on, like, you can't really auto it, I would say. Not only that, you're also in a situation where he has low growth. The coin power is only +1 on his final ability, and the overall power is 5, leaving it at 9, where you have a lot of other 3-star characters with final abilities that are exceptionally more powerful than that. So he's not going to be able to do necessarily what you want him to do all the time. Now, he does, when attacked, gain +1 charge count, which is okay. But other than that, the only other form of gaining charge is on the rip ability, which gives him +3 charge. So if you are in a situation where you are wanting to use that final attack or wanting to use that secondary attack, you're no matter what going to have to use rip first. 1 ally with the lowest speed inflicts rupture is his support ability. Not remarkable either. He does have really good speed though, 4 to 8, along with 38 defense. You could make him work. If you're running like an envy composition and you're wanting to do something like that, I think he could be an okay unit. But I just don't see him really excelling right now, unless either we get a change to charge or we're going into like a fight where you specifically want slash fragility and defense down on like a specific enemy with like that specific tactic. I don't know that debuffing is something that is really going to be relevant right now, especially compared to N-Corp Meursault, who just came out recently, who I think is an amazing unit. I use him. I have him fully awakened or fully threaded. He's great. I mean, he does everything. He can heal himself. He can inflict, bleed, nails, bind. Like he does it all. Sorry, he cannot inflict bleed, but he can inflict nails and bind and stagger threshold. He has 2 coins on all of his abilities. His power is great. His final ability power is 8 with 2 rolling +3. Compare that to the other Meursault is just like a huge gap. And then you have You Are Cleansed to Sin, which is a 6 power ability with 2 at +3. The growth of 0.68 is not remarkable, but what's great is his primary ability lowers stagger threshold by 60% of damage dealt. His secondary ability inflicts nails. It also inflicts bind. If the target has 5+ nails, inflict 2 bind and 1 attack power down next turn. And then his secondary final skill inflicts 2 nails and heals 50% of the damage dealt. So I mean, you can't really go wrong here. His passive for 4 Wrath, when below 50% HP, remove 1 negative status effect and gain 1 Fanatic, 1 attack up, and 3 protection at the start of the combat phase. His support ability at Wrath ×3, apply 1 attack power up and 1 protection to the ally with the lowest HP. If the ally is from N-Corp, also apply 1 Fanatic. He does have a speed of 3 to 5, which is a little bit on the slower end, but at 42 defense and 198 HP, and with the capability to really be like this independent unit, he kind of reminds me of Gregor in that like Gregor's 3-star form where he can like self-heal and self-manage. He really kind of reminds me of that situation, and especially if you're wanting him to be independent, you can self-heal with the Meursault here. You can even get surgery if you really wanted to, but I think you're going to want to be focusing on this here for his ego. But yeah, overall Meursault, full of situations where he's not incredible, but when he's good, such as when you're able to like land him, like maybe you need a debuffer, maybe you need N-Corp to be like, Mirror Dungeon, which he's really good in. Maybe you need burn damage because you're doing chapter 3. When he's good, he's really good, but he's not necessarily universal, with the exception, I would say, of N-Corp Meursault. So thank you so much for watching, you guys, and have a great rest of your day.